So with our heat wave out here, I've been taking advantage of not going out of the house and sitting in front of the hot computer and scanning away. So I've got a whole bunch of movies of no particular rhyme or reason, and we'll just have some fun with them. The first one is going to be Corriganville. For folks that don't know it, Corriganville was a movie ranch out just on the Simi Valley border, right where I was mentioning, Don, there was a fire yesterday, is right where Corriganville was. It was originally built as a movie studio facility, and then this guy, Crash Corrigan, not Wrong Way Corrigan, but Crash Corrigan, a Western movie star, bought it and realized that there was a real potential for operating it as a theme park because a lot of people wanted to come out and see how the movies were made. So in the days before Disneyland was built, this was the premier place to go around LA to take people out there. And as I mentioned before we were getting started, the road out there at that time was horrific, going through the mountains, twisting and turning. The 118 freeway didn't exist. But Corriganville operated for quite a few years, and then it got sold to Bob Hope, who renamed it Hopetown, and then a few years later he developed it. So it's a giant suburban area right now, but the city of Simi Valley owns the core part that was Corriganville, and if you're in the area, you can go out there and there's very nice signs, and I can show pictures at another time, but you can walk around. There'll be a sign showing this is where Johnny Weissmuller did this movie, and another sign, this is where John Wayne did this movie, and this is where, if you guys remember the old TV show Rin Tin Tin, that's where this was shot. So this is a movie, I don't have a date on it, but it's somewhere in the late 50s, early 60s of going out to Corriganville. And let me get it started here. Okay, media player, optimize for video. So we'll get going here on it. So hopefully everybody sees it now.
Yep.
So again, Corriganville, you paid an admission price and you came in, and just like a lot of Western towns, frontier town, that sort of thing, they had shootouts on the main street. All these buildings are gone now, but the concrete pads are out there where they were built, and they reconstructed them for the movie they did with Leonardo DiCaprio a few years ago. I forget the name of it, where they redid the Tate murders and that sort of thing.
I spent a time in Hollywood.
Yeah, but then all the temporary buildings had to come back down because of the park restrictions. But if you do get out here, it's a really nice area to go. So this is just obviously the home movie. Somebody grabbed some views out there. They had all these standing sets of Mexican villages. Then they had shows that you could go off and see the shootout. Ride the horses, the stagecoaches. I love the old cars and everything. If anybody can better identify the year by the vehicles, please let me know. But Corriganville was huge. I've got if you go out there, this lake is still out there, right, without the water. As a matter of fact, let me stop it here real quick. Just go right back 1 second. There's right there, this thing up here, concrete area here was built for a movie in which a horse had to go at full speed, run off the edge of a cliff, and fall into a lake. Well, horses don't like to do that, so they had to basically, kick the crap out of the horse and get it to go. And then they used matte paintings to make this mountain look higher than it is. But the mountain is still out there, the lake is still out there, but there's no water in it now. So it's just kind of interesting. I've been out to Corriganville dozens of times. This movie's the first shot I've seen with actually water in the lake. They have underwater viewports that they were able to do underwater filming there. You can still walk down into those filming locations. There's more of the cliff out there. Then they had rodeo contests, roping, tying steers, that sort of stuff. And almost all this is now, again, part of Simi Valley. Giant, there go the dogs. Giant housing complex.
Bill, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can barely hear you over the dogs. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, looking at that picture when you saw the parking lot, there was a 54 Ford there. I didn't see anything newer. There was a lot of really older cars, so I would place this in the mid 50s, probably early to mid 50s, not into the 60s.
Yeah, my guess was somewhere in that range. Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah.
The next one I have here get started here is Knott's Berry Farm. This was a souvenir film sold in the 1960s. I'll just stop it real quick. It was absolutely bright red. Matter of fact, I have a slightly different version of this. Let me grab this. I'm still playing this with this one, and this I'm trying to get the speed adjusted on it. But this was solid bright red. I've done my best to try to bring some colors back into it. I'm still working on it. But for those that don't know it, Knott's Berry Farm is in Buena Park, California. Started as a roadside stand selling jams and berries and stuff. And it's a nice little theme park. It's no Disneyland, but what is? But Knott's is a good spot to go to on its own. This again was solid bright red. All the souvenir films from the 60s basically suffer from this condition where the colors go. So I did my best so far. I'm still working on it to try to restore it. But Knott's in this particular era had an awful lot of street characters. You go there today, you don't see anywhere near as many of them. But they had the old prospector here, and they had all sorts of gunfights. Today you do a gunfight and everybody's gonna think it's real guns, so they don't do that anymore. Cody, who's usually on the Saturday Talks, but is not today for her birthday, knows who that Indian is. Now here I get the feeling that this stage got robbed an awful lot because he knew right where to throw the bag of loot. This stuff is all gone from Knott's today. They used to have a big zoo out there with, we're going to see more of it. This was a figure of an Indian in a birch bark, carved out, dugout canoe. We're going to see seals and some other things. All that's taken out now for roller coasters and other thrill rides. But if you're in the area, I really do recommend, not spending every dollar at Disney. Go over to Knott's and enjoy it. Walter Knotts was a real visionary. He bought a lot of these buildings are not theme park fabrications, but they're buildings that he bought from ghost towns and brought out and put out here also in Calico, California, which is a park to go to. Then he had these figures made. Like again, this is a souvenir movie, but I've got plenty of pictures of real people out there posing with the Indians, the ladies rather. Boot Hill Cemetery. You still go for a stagecoach ride. And as I mentioned, they used to have a big farm area here, Old McDonald's Farm, so you can see all sorts of seals and that sort of stuff. This lasted until the mid-70s or so, and all of a sudden things like corkscrew roller coasters and that became the craze, and they replaced it. So I hope you enjoyed Knott's. Now here's another.
Bill,
Yes.
I'm sorry, have you been out there recently at all to Knott?
About 2 years ago.
Is the chicken dinner restaurant still there?
Yeah, matter of fact, let me just stop here first. And the chicken dinner restaurant, that's where Cody is today having lunch. Chicken dinner restaurant, Knott's was sold like everything else. The Knott's family had it for years, and it was sold to Cedar Point's amusement company. They gutted and redid the chicken restaurant, but it's still really good. Carol and I, up to the pandemic, will go out there, and we're going to give away a secret here. On Super Bowl Sunday, you can go out to the Knott's Berry Farm. Normally, the chicken restaurant has an hour plus wait of people standing outside waiting to get in. You go on Super Bowl Sunday and you go in for lunch, and they're saying, come on in, we need the business. So, Carol, wouldn't you say that it's still a good spot to go to and it hasn't changed much?
I think so, but now we haven't been there in 3 years, so yeah, I mean, and they give you a lot of food, so bring along a cooler to bring it home. You'll eat for days.
Yeah,
Do they still do the thing? Last time I went was probably the early 80s. You had to go to a particular seating, like at 1 o'clock, a bunch of people went in, you had to be out by 2.
No, I don't think So you come in and you eat, and I don't remember, we went there one time with Stacia, remember? And we stayed a long time and talked, so I don't think they make you get out, but maybe if it's super crowded, they
Yeah, but
encourage you.
Yeah.
the other nice thing is that if you go to Knott's and you want to go to Mrs. Knott's, you don't go into the main parking lot. You go over to where all the shops are, park there, and then they give you validation to, if you go to the restaurant, they validate your parking and you get like 3 hours of free parking. So, because otherwise you're paying $20 or something to go park to go to Knott's. But how many people, I'm sure Brock and Glenn, have you been over to Mrs. Knott's?
Yeah, years ago. I mean, I'd say my memories of it were as a kid, and I did go a couple times as an adult, but the lines were so long, our kids didn't want to wait. Like you said, the hour wait to get into the place. But as a kid, I remember going there, and I think I've said this before, I would love boysenberry pie, but I would stuff myself with so much stuff because they put it on the table, family style at that time, and you just kept taking biscuits and chicken and stuff, and then I couldn't get the pie down, and I was miserable going home in the car with my stomach so full it felt like it was going to burst.
Oh, I hope you took the pie home.
Well, I tried to, yeah, but it was just it was just a different time and stuff. But yeah, that was. But I haven't been there in a long time.
What we ought to do is, for the next Super Bowl Sunday, let's have a meetup, all the LA people. We can meet over there, have some boysenberry pie, some creamed corn, and enjoy ourselves. But just don't tell everybody else.
Yeah. Have Debbie set up one of the WDI luncheons for that day.
That's an idea.
I've had the chicken dinner, a few times, but in my high school days, we moved to Cerritos. We were about 6 miles from Knott's. And so we would ride our bikes over there. And that was before they charged admission. And we just go and have a great old time in there. Love the place.
Yeah, Knott's is really nice. The last time we were there, there was a pre-admission for police. So I don't think I've ever felt safer in my life. Everybody online, you looked around, and, oh, there's a gun, there's a gun, there's a gun, there's a gun. And unfortunately, Knott's has had problems recently where so many people are using it to drop their teenage kids off just as a place to go. And then they all decided about 6 weeks ago, hey, let's have a big fight at Knott's on Saturday night. And people went down there looking for a fight, and they had to evacuate the park and everything. So now they have a very strict policy that you can't be under a certain age. You have to have chaperones. Your chaperone has to be with you, and hopefully the problem's gone down. But so far, they haven't righted Mrs. Knott's, so we can meet there on Super Bowl Sunday. Well, let me get to the next movie here real quick. This one is a travel log. Let me share the screen. I keep finding different things on eBay or other places that look like fun. And this is another one that happily the color is shifted on this, but not quite as bad. And this is got a date on it where it says it's 1975, I think, but then we see the premiere of Star Wars, that sort of thing. But let me get it started here. And it's a nice trip around LA. This one's going to last us about 13 minutes. And we'll see some parts of the city have changed. This again was bright red. I'll show you a little comparison after it. But here we're at Olvera Street. For folks not in the LA area, that's an old part of LA downtown. It's pretty much a touristy sort of right now. Lots of shops, and you can go and listen to the mariachi bands and buy all sorts of trinkets. But as the sign said, this is a restored house you can go through, and it's kind of interesting because they have displays explaining how they had to have root cellars and different odds and ends at that point in time. There's the brand new Bonaventure Hotel. There's cylinders off in the center there. Downtown LA has changed quite a bit since this was taken. Some of the buildings that are still there, like the Security Pacific building, no longer have the Security Pacific logo because there's no longer a Security Pacific bank.
Bill?
Yeah.
Was that the that building that's surrounded by kind of a moat called the Power and Light Building?
That's in here. We're going to see more of that. Yeah. Department of Water and Power.
I notice how light the traffic is on the freeways too.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you can date it, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, a lot of these buildings are still there, but with totally different signage or names on it.
Comment on the traffic, even though it was light, looks light in those pictures, I remember complaining about how bad it was at that time. You know,
Yeah.
now it's like driving in a parking lot, so everything's relative.
I moved here in 1976 and I had come here from upstate New York and went, holy crap, what the hell is this? Now I think that was just a walk in the park. My God. I still remember though, coming on the 10 and I was 5 lanes off to the left side of the freeway, thinking, how am I ever going to get off this road? How am I ever going to get across 5 lanes to get to the exit ramp? Today, you don't even think about it. Piece of sculpture downtown. There again is the Bonaventure Hotel. That was real revolutionary when it opened, with the elevators up on the outside of the building and a rotating cocktail lounge. Here's which theater is this, Carol? Is that the Amundsen? She may have
That
been-
was looking at the Amundsen, and to the right, the round building was the Mark Taper.
Mark
Forum.
Taper, right.
Yeah.
This is the
And I think that pond we saw before, that reflection was the LA DWP pond.
That one, the triangular sculpture was called the Triforium, and it's supposed to light up and play music, and they've never been able to get it to work reliably for any period of time. It just cut off the price, so we don't know what the price of the rib was back then.
Yeah, since then, they've greatly reduced the size of the farmer's market by
Yeah,
putting in the shopping center with the trolley car.
Yeah, it's nice that part of the old farmers market still survived. The
Yeah,
Olvera
there-
Street,
sorry.
Joey, if you come out, you got to go here, and maybe they'll let you dig in their pit and try to find some bone.
I've been there. I love it there. It's my favorite spot.
I
Mandy
understand
loves
they're
their
trying to
dinner.
dig a tunnel. They're trying to build a tunnel under the La Brea tar pits for
Oh.
transportation. And it's going to be quite an engineering challenge.
Now that's gone now, isn't it? That museum, has that been torn down?
Yes.
No, it's still there.
No, the
I thought it
LA
was-
Museum, the Tar Pits Museum is there, but the LA Museum of Art they've redone.
Okay.
And all sorts of yells and screams about destroying a plastic structure. Back then, even the beaches were empty. I imagine with a temperature 106 today, it's going to be quite crowded out at the beach.
But the water is always too cold to go in.
You know, plus I get a daily report of water conditions for the county, and for the past year, every single day, the water's been unhealthy at Santa Monica Pier. Every single day.
Well, what's the temperature of it?
I don't know. I've got a pool, so I don't need to find out. And just street performers. If you've been out here, Venice has always been famous for crazy performers. Again, go down to Olvera Street, Pershing Square, you get some of that. LA, of course, being world famous for our ice skating. I have no idea which theater or arena this is shot in.
I know they used to do the old one of the basketball teams played, but the real old LA, it wasn't a convention center, but that's where they used to do a lot of the ice shows
Yeah,
downtown.
and again, you could probably date these by trying to figure out who's playing, what date the Dodgers and Padres were playing, and
You ever notice the ice skaters spend 3/4 of the time skating backwards? You ever wonder why?
is that it, Asner in the crowd?
That
Yeah,
was what I thought.
yeah, no, I believe it was. The Dodger Stadium hasn't changed an awful lot over the years. They've put up some new signage and that sort of thing, but you know,
Except for all the ads now and all the ballparks.
And the
Yeah.
$15 hot dogs.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can spend a fortune on food there.
Yeah.
We made the mistake one night. We went with some friends. They said they had tickets. I said, "Oh, you got the tickets? I'll get the food." They got the better of the deal. But now,
Yeah,
now
it's
it's looking like traditional LA, you know, you can see the traffic there.
Well,
Not real bad.
Do we know what intersection that is?
No, it's probably the 5 level downtown. Oh, we get some op art effects here.
Oh, okay.
going back on La Brea, those dinosaurs were made by Imagineering, weren't they? Those dinosaur figures are still in the tar pits there.
I don't know that,
I don't know.
maybe.
I believe they were done by Imagineering and hauled over there.
Yeah, I think they were there since the 30s, I believe. And
Yeah.
they were all, they're prehistoric mammals.
If we
Yeah.
just stop here real quick,
Mammoths.
over here, we have the Hollywood, the Cinerama Dome.
Oh.
It's still there, it's closed, but they're hoping to reopen it. And
Yay.
over here, we have the Capitol Records Tower. And almost every single thing here in between is gone and changed. There's next to nothing here that still looks the way it did in the mid-70s.
The Capitol Records building still looks really nice. I drive by it every once in a while.
Yeah,
They kept it up nicely.
yeah, and they light it up real nice at the Christmas season every year.
Right.
There's the Capitol Records building. Giant needle up on the top.
Yeah.
I used to drive by it every day. I worked in Hollywood for a couple of years and always a great icon of the city.
But they don't make records anymore, so what do they make?
Well, they make CDs, I guess. There's the dome.
Bill, you said the dome is closed, that theater?
Yeah, the chain that owned it went bankrupt, but they're selling it and there's talk it's gonna reopen sometime late this year. It closed for the pandemic, so, oh, there's Star Wars, so we can, again, date this. Yeah, the dome is still equipped to show 3 strip Cinerama movies. So there's talk that one of the first movies they showed there was It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And there's talk that they're going to show that when they reopen it again. The famous Chinese theater and the footprints and handprints. I remember Disney did this for, having people like Fred McMurray put their footprints and everything outside the studio theater. Unfortunately, they used a very inferior concrete and found out within 10 years it almost worn away. So they had to take it all out and put it up in what they call now Legends Plaza. But, it turned out Grauman stuff has lasted for 50 years. Disney didn't last for 10.
I think they just used a standard mix of concrete, and I believe Grauman's uses a very high cement ratio in that, which will
Yeah.
make it a harder. Yeah, nobody did any research for that, unfortunately.
No, it's a shame because it started crumbling like almost right away. So they used to have a giant parade every holiday, Christmas time Hollywood parade. Oh, remember the Hollywood Palace, the TV series? But they brought it back. The parade kind of went away and has come back, but it's nowhere near Hollywood. I mean, Christmas time in Hollywood doesn't look like it did in these movies. The lights and everything aren't there. The parade is not as big a deal. So unfortunately, time moved on for Hollywood. The parade isn't even aired live anymore. It's they tape it and air it a week or two later. It was a big thing to be the Grand Marshal of the Hollywood Parade. And we're into the high rent district now. Century City had been the 20th Century Fox back lot, and then when Cleopatra financially ruined the studio, they sold off the back lot and put up all these high rises. And this used to be a really unique spot with all the towers. We have more of them across LA now, but there used to be a really nice, this hotel's still there. There used to be a really nice theater in there that I know Carol and I went to some live shows. Unfortunately, that's gone. Wilshire Boulevard is a very, very long thoroughfare. We're going through the Beverly Hills part of it now. Imagine hot dogs are more than $12 at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And we're going to see some movie star homes here. So these folks did okay for themselves. I can't imagine what these things would cost today. Just, it would be unbelievable.
Well, so many of them are now purchased and torn down.
Yeah, a lot of them, they just bought them for the land and put up.
The era before security gates.
So there again, this has a 1975 copyright, but we end up with Star Wars and other stuff like that. Just as a real quick idea, we'll let you know how these things can be restored. This is what the thing looked like on the left, and then with some color punch up and correction. So again, I encourage anybody that has your own movies. You can also look at the one on the left. You can see it jitters around a lot, has a dust spots pop up on it. The computers can sit there and take out 90% of this stuff automatically. You know, you turn it on, go eat dinner, come back, and it's crunched away and done it for you. So let me hop over here. I had promised some footage from the World's Fair. So let me go down here. So we have, this is June 1965. These folks were in New York to visit the fair, and then they went on a cruise. So not the greatest of cinematography, but they caught some nice views along the way. There was the entrance to the model train show at the Better Living Center. Lockers off on the left. You can't do that today because people would put bombs on them and explode them. So back in the fair, you could rent a locker. After they blew a few of them up, they ripped them out all across New York City. Transportation and travel. The slide from the Wisconsin Pavilion. Giant purses, pocketbooks, handbags, whatever we want to call them. This is interesting. Bourbon Street. There's a shot here of the treasure chest, a shop. You know, I have 25,000 something pictures of the fair, and I don't think I have any still images that caught that particular view. So it's just always kind of fun when you're doing one of these things and you spot something that's new and unique and you go, oh, I never saw that before. Tired feet. They were really enamored by these things. You could put a dime in there and they would rejuvenate your feet in the Belgian village. I mean, because obviously most ancient Belgian villages had such things. You could come out and help yourself to the wine. They had both red and white wine. The ladies appear interested in seeing more about that. Sparkling rosé. Gotta have a waffle, of course. It was nice to see the Belgian village looking nice and clean and neat. And when 64 it barely opened. 65 was its big heyday. Mentioned before, these molds were originally built for the 1933 Chicago Fair and then reused here. Oil paintings, I've got pictures of the final days of the fair with a giant, all prices slash sign. You wonder how many of those are still hanging in somebody's house as a, souvenir of the fair. Like I said, he moved around kind of quick.
What they don't show you is behind the paintings inside the building, there's Bob Ross whipping out painting after painting.
Yeah.
Happy little trees.
Astral Fountain, again, the movie kind of gives you an idea of the scope of it from the size people around it. Huge, huge structure. There's our boss. Although most of us thought our bosses were goofy, right?
Yeah, people sure dressed differently back then, didn't they?
Sure did. Entrance to the Schaefer Center here. I got a kick out of here because they brought out famous sports stars and you could go and meet them right outside there. And, get their autograph and that. This is inside. They had a big buffet. Serving, of course, Schaefer beer. I'm getting hungry just looking at it. Carved turkey. Wow.
It does look good. Is Schaefer still made? No.
I don't know. I haven't seen Schaefer beer for ages.
I don't think so. I don't
Yeah.
think so, Randy.
Have any of you ever tasted it?
Oh, as a kid, I had some of my dad's.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Okay.
And Ballantine too is that was a Brooklyn beer.
Yeah.
That's not made anymore either.
But how many of you, when you hear Schaefer, think of the song, right?
Right.
Schaefer is the one beer to have when you're having more than one. Yeah, Valentine, that was my father and his friends would get into big arguments as far as their favorite beer. To me, it all tasted pretty much the same, but Valentine, one of my dad's friends just absolutely swore by it. And then my dad swore at it, but now we're gonna hop over to Disneyland.
By the way, you can still buy Schaefer beer.
You can.
Yeah, I'm looking at an ad for Schaefer Lager beer, $2 for a can.
Wow.
Probably.
My bet is it's just a licensing thing and it's probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. What about Ballantine, Don?
Look, I remember Valentine and Genesee beer, Utica Club,
Right.
all of those.
I've never heard of it, most of these. So I was raised on the West Coast. So it was Coors, Olympia, Falstaff,
Don't forget Brew 102.
Lucky Lager.
Well, I tell you, if you lived upstate New York and you saw the Genesee River, you would never want to, where it goes through Rochester, you would never want to put anything associated with Genesee into your body. So we're at Disneyland in 1974. It looks like a couple of young gals have gone with their grandparents to the park, and they're going to get treated for all sorts of hats and merchandise and things like that. But again, we talk about how differently people dressed, suits and, fedoras and all the rest of it. So, but, I see pictures like this and you wondered, how many of these sketches ever survive that people, they post them every now and then, the Vintage Disneyland group, people come up, that they find them in their attic or whatever. The trouble is you have something like that done, you've got to carry it around the park for the rest of the day or go put it in a locker. So up in the tree
We
house.
still have the silhouette cutouts from our kids when we took them, when they were
Yeah.
real little.
They're just reopening this Silhouettes studio now, finally, after
Oh.
being closed for the pandemic. It's supposed to open this week. So the people mover just at the very top of the edge there, the Tomorrowland that I always remember.
Richard, was that from the fair?
Was what from the fair, Joey?
It was,
Ri- Ri-
it was from
yeah.
a street fair, and I happen to have it right here by my,
I see, yeah. He showed a caricature that they did of him. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I see that. Have any of you guys heard that the People Mover may be reopening in some form?
I've seen it on fan sites. I haven't heard.
Yeah, that's where I've seen it too.
The Columbia sailing ship, for those that have only been to Disney World, that's one of the things that makes Disneyland different.
It's nice to see Tom Sawyer Island without the big giant stage.
Yes, isn't it? The way it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And off on the Barrel Bridge. Almost with the, way the camera lens compresses things, it looks like they're about to get run over. Just reading how Disneyland's put in all sorts of artificial turf to try to, reduce water consumption. Hopefully they don't start putting in artificial flowers.
I'm looking at artificial turf for my front yard. It ain't cheap.
No. Back in the days when the characters were wandering around the park and you didn't have to line up for a pre-scheduled meet and greet.
You could actually walk on the sidewalk,
Yeah,
but you can't do anymore.
get another painting done. I don't know what they charge for these, but you'll see when she finishes. It's actually pretty good. I thought they did a nice job on these things.
A guy that I worked with at Delta, on his off days, he used to do this at Disney.
But no kidding.
Yeah, it was Frank Paplia. I never asked him what they charged, but
Since I have zero artistic talent, I do get a real appreciation for people that can do these things.
My sister and I had them done in the mid-70s, and I was amazed at how fast the artist was able to pop those puppies out. I mean, just 3 or 4 minutes and it was done.
Bill, did you know Chris Runco used to do that?
No kidding, really.
Yeah, that was one of his first jobs in Disney.
It's amazing how, like Tony Baxter started scooping ice cream, I mean, there's so many people that had those kind of different backgrounds. But I thought it came out pretty nice. And you can see they've talked to the grandparents and buying them hats now. Oh, hope we go to the Skyway, sadly departed.
Apparently orange and blue was a big theme with these people.
Yeah, it looks that way, doesn't it?
Man, the crowds.
I know.
I was just thinking the same thing. I mean, you can see the vehicles moving around. It's hardly anybody. It's like just on a regular city street, it's not this jam-packed place of,
when we used
bodies.
to go, we would always be amazed at how crowded we thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside the Tiki Birds. Back when they had a big doll shop in Fantasyland. Somehow the way they're staring at them, I think the grandparents may have been buying dolls. What are the souvenir stands? Just think how much all that neat stuff would be worth it today. There's a Small World record album. Candy store. Looks like they're inside the Emporium at this point. Getting more loot. So let me take us back to New York now. We're gonna go find this one here. This is the Catskill Game Farm, and this was kind of an interesting one. It's black and white, and I don't know the year on it, but for folks that had not been there, Catskill Game Farm is up in the you have the Catskill Mountains. Most people think of the southern tier of the Catskills, where you had all the famous resorts. This is up in the northern Catskills, more up in towards the Albany area than than closer to New York City. But Catskill Game Farm was a great spot. My parents and grandparents took us there because we'd go up to Lake George and go up for the summer, most summers, and then we'd stop at the Catskill Game Farm either on the way up or the way down. It closed a number of years ago. It sat there kind of in ruins. I understand now, and anybody that's been there recently, feel free to chime in, that you can go and tour the site and, walk through the old animal barns and cages. And that one, this is a giraffe hiding behind a pole. But I don't have a year on this one. If anybody is able to guess one, please let me know. But how many people here have been to Catskill Game Farm? Nobody? Oh, wow. If they are successful in reopening it, it will be a real coup. They had bought it and it was going to be developed as a housing complex. And then people realized why nobody lives in the upper Catskill area, because there's no jobs up there, sort of thing. But this was really great. I have a great picture. They had a big stew pot, that they would put. My father had pictures of the kids in it. It's like, what's cooking up at the Catskill Game Farm? Cannibals eating the kids.
My wife went there many times, Bill.
Did she?
And she still has the little elephant figure that she bought there. And what they're doing now with it is you can camp there. They have made these little like African safari type tent. Like a huge tent sitting on a stage, and you can camp there overnight and then tour the grounds. You can't tour the grounds if you don't pay your money to camp there.
You can or cannot?
You cannot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of these, what are they called, glamping type things?
Yeah.
Well, we had showed movies from Catskill Game Farm a couple of weeks ago, and they had a tremendous number of bears out there, bear cubs. It was just a really, it's a great spot to go as a kid. One of the things that was nice was the petting area, where I think this movie has some of it, where you put your dime in the slot, fill it up your hand with animal food, and go out and feed the deer and goats and that sort of thing. And it was. Again, it's sort of vanished part of America. Animal parks are not a big thing anymore. So I always try to figure out, given the winters, how tough they are up in that part of the country, or they were back then. How these animals had to be probably locked inside barns for the most of the winter. Bird showing off its plumage.
Actually, Bill, that might have been a bird warming itself. We used to have vultures when we lived in the Sierras that would show up in the early spring, and you'd see them out in the early morning with their wings spread like that with the sun on them, trying to warm themselves up.
Yeah.
So with you talking about how cold it can be in the Catskills, maybe this was taken in the springtime and he's trying to soak up some sun.
Well, to give you an idea of what the Catskills can be like, we had an event, Richard Herring may have gone to it, called Operation Igloo at our camp in the Southern Catskills, and we would go up there in February, and it was not uncommon for temperatures of like 10 below zero, and the river that feeds our camp lake would freeze solid, and we would camp out on the river. That again is 10 below zero in the Southern Catskills. This is 100 something miles north in the North Catskills. I'm sure it was even chillier.
Hey, Bill, do you know this RDS dude waiting in the waiting room?
No, sorry, I'm just letting it sit there.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I was going to let him sit there too, but if you knew him, I'd let him in.
Richard, did you ever go on Operation Igloo?
Yeah, I went, the weekend it went down to -15.
Yeah.
And that scared the hell out of my parents back home when they found out about it. But it was incredible. The lower Catskills, meaning the southern part, are actually higher than the northern part. But other things might affect that climate. But yeah, it got that cold.
Well, I remember we would have huge fires in the council house dining hall, and people would go in there to warm up. And as you got near the fire, your clothes would start steaming as the moisture would come out of them. But we had one year where the temperature went up to like 35, and it was terrible because one of the big things for Igloo is you would go up to the ranger house, take your sled and go sliding all the way down the entrance road into camp, you know, and then have to walk half an hour to get back up to the top again. When it was 35, you get on your sled, you go, and it would just stop because it was slush.
Yeah.
So instead of snow, it was wet. I mean, everybody was soaking wet. There was nothing to do. It was really miserable. I mean, when we first got up there, we thought, oh, this is going to be great. It's not so cold. And everybody was just praying for it to get cold. It was a miserable, miserable weekend. No idea what we're looking at here. Sleeping kangaroos, it looks like. We're almost done here with Catskill Game Farm. Mentioned petting zoo, here's part of it. So inside the area there, you have ducks and things like that, and outside goats and stuff wandering around. All right, so that's the end of Catskill Game Farm. Let's see, I had another one here. The same folks that went to the World's Fair went on a trip here. We're going to take I don't know if we'll do the whole thing. It's kind of long. We're going to start on it. We're going to take a cruise here from New York City to Casablanca aboard the SS Independence. Back at this point in time, there were all sorts of passenger ship terminals. Right now, there's one big cruise ship terminal in New York. But back in this day, each of the liners had their own terminal. My parents were travel agents, so they would go on these ships, and we'd be down in the crowd down below. But everybody would come out, say you goodbye. They would give you streamers of paper that we'll see some of that flung off into the crowd. And I'm always thinking, why are the people down below looking so happy? You're not going on the cruise. You know, the people up above, they have I'll have to take that footage out, miss that somehow. But yeah, this is again, let's start throwing streams of paper, and off we gotta go on our cruise. The SS Independence was one of two cruise ships. There was the Independence and the Constitution, and they were owned by a cruise line. And I said cruise lines. They weren't cruise ships in the way that we have them today. They were ocean liners, a real different tradition, sort of ship than the cruise ships of today. These ships carried cargo. We're going to see some of that. They carried people. They carried all sorts of things. But the idea was they took long cruises between point A and point B. So this particular cruise line had two ships. One would sail from here off to the Mediterranean area, and the other one would be going the opposite direction, and they would pass. So these cruises were several weeks long. They'd be gone 2-3 weeks at a time. In 1967, all of a sudden, by this point, jet travel has become more popular. People weren't willing to take 3 weeks to get to Casablanca when you could be there in, 10 hours or something. So the ships were pulled off the Atlantic Mediterranean line, and they ended up cruising around Hawaii for quite a few number of years. They got sold to other companies and painted in really different colors with, very wild paint schemes and everything. But they had the advantage, they were built in the United States. And if you have a United States ship built and registered in the United States, you can go between New York, between ports in the United States and not have to go to a foreign port, which you do if you're a foreign ship. So it made it very popular for them to go cruising around the Hawaiian Islands. Unfortunately, the Constitution wore out, and they took parts of it to keep the independence going for years. The independence finally wore out, and it became involved in a giant international controversy when they towed it out of San Francisco. It had been seized by a bankruptcy court, and they were towing it out. There's Ellis Island where all the immigrants came through, but they towed the ship over to India to break it up. And the United States government was very upset because it was full of PCBs and asbestos and should not have been taken out. So they were in a court battle to try to get the ship back, and it went up on a reef, broke its back and broke into pieces, and eventually was scrapped. So back in the days of the liners, formal nights were a big thing. So the lady here, we've seen her before at the fair. Now she's getting ready for her formal night on the ship. I've got many, many pictures of my parents, going off on the nights on the ships for the same sort of events. I may have mentioned on another talk, when these ships were all going into in and out of New York, I worked for a summer job, 1969, I guess it was, for the phone company. And when the ships were there, the guys at the phone company would say, "Hey, let's go down to the ship and let's go eat." And I'd say, how do you do that? How do you go on the ship and eat? Well, you would pay 50 cents for a ticket that would let you tour the ship, and the money would go to the Longshoremen's Union for a retirement fund. No security lines, no anything. You just walked on board the ship, wandered around wherever you wanted. And we would find a big party in one of the rooms. And we would go in and we'd just start eating ourselves silly and drinking as fast as we could. And then if somebody came up and said, "Excuse me, I don't know you. Are you here with the Westinghouse party?" And go, "No, I'm sorry. I thought this was the GE group." And when we'd leave there, we'd go in another room and eat ourselves silly until they asked if we were part of the GE group. It worked out quite well. It was a great way to get free lunches about once a week. For 50 cents, it was a good deal. So back then, when they would let you do things like tour the bridge, and we're finally at sea, going along, somebody's sun tanning down there, down below. Well, we're going to see in a moment what made this a bit different than cruise ships of today. Kind of blurry there, what to do if the ship breaks out into a fire. One of the bridge wings. And here's the difference. The dogs. Back then, people were gone away for several weeks. You didn't leave your dogs at home. They had kennels on board. Some of them were built into the funnels of the ship, because if you had a ship that had 3 funnels, it was obviously better than a ship with 2 funnels, right? Well, in most cases, one of the funnels was actually totally dummy, didn't do anything other than look good and impressive. So down at the bottom, they would put dog kennels in there so that you could keep your dogs with you. Now, of course, if you go into Casablanca, what do? You wear a fur mink stole. Everybody had their fur coats and everything. Doesn't look particularly cold. Yeah,
Bill, didn't they do that with the Titanic to make it look larger, to make it
Yeah.
look longer?
yeah, you
Yeah.
put an extra stack on it, and therefore it's wow, that's got to be a really good ship if it has 4 stacks.
Yeah, the Normandy third stack housed the air conditioning plant. That was it.
Wow.
Now, this movie was originally much longer than it is now. So it's a bit long now, but there were things like whatever this island they come to, he went from the left side of the island to the back side and up again and back again and back again and up again. So I took out all sorts of stuff to try to make it, you know, less lengthy. He also, whoever shot this, could not understand, I think, how to keep the camera level with the skyline. So it always looks like the water is going to run off the edge of the film. She's outside the swimming pool. This is August of 1965. So again, you know, I got a kick out of the mink coats and, you know, fur stoles and all that, because it had to be warm when you left New York, and you're going from New York to Casablanca. I can't imagine there were any nights it was chilly whatsoever, but I still have to edit out a few pieces of footage I can see. Blurry ship in the far distance.
Plus all those fezzes that everybody had to buy.
Yeah. It's a shame all these classic liners are gone, but the only one left is the SS United States tied up over there in Philadelphia, and it's never going to sail again. So it's a time that has come and gone. If anybody has any idea what island this is, please let me know. He was absolutely in love with it.
If they're pretty far into the cruise, that could be the Azores, maybe.
Could be.
Yeah.
I've never been to that area, so if anybody has, that would I'd love to know. So it looks nice and green, and then you can see some houses and stuff on it coming up. The village up there.
Not a lot of trees.
Nope. Well-dressed cruisers.
Wonder if you got that hat at the World's Fair.
He should have left it there.
Yeah.
Oh, some signs of civilization. That's the nice thing about slides. Depends on how many can label and tell you where they are, but in the movies, you know, where is it? I don't know. Another formal night.
These people must have had some money.
Yeah, they must have. A number of their films sold on eBay, and they had traveled all around the world. So whoever they were, they took quite a few trips to quite a few places. I only bought this one because of the World's Fair footage that was on the beginning, but having a appreciation for ships, I was glad to find this on the end of it. George, will you put that damn thing away? Put the camera down and zip me up. So now we're coming, I think, closer to Casablanca. Randy, have you been to Casablanca on your many journeys?
No, never been anywhere in Africa.
Oh, well, I don't know if anybody has been to Casablanca. If they can tell us how much it's changed from what we're going to see. Now, I knew it had been a major port for the French Navy before World War II. When we go in here, we're gonna see quite a few ships. And a lot of them are old Liberty ships, cargo ships that have been built for World War II that were still sailing at that point in time. But, just ship after ship after ship and pier, derricks and, cranes, that sort of thing. So it was still a good port. You can see, again, the tilt of the camera in all these shots. Well, let's go to shore and see some of the fun stuff. Oh, coming to the harbor, there's the jetty and the breakwater. Somebody water skiing. Some of the old Liberty ships. Some of these ships were built in less than 2 weeks' time. I mean, absolutely astonishing that they have everything down to the assembly, practice of putting it together, prefab the sections, bring them into a Kaiser shipyard, weld them together, drop them in the water, and here comes the next one. Tugboat bringing us up to the dock. Didn't quite catch the name of that ship. I'll have to go back to stop it, take a look at it.
Boy, this guy was definitely a proponent of Blink and You'll Miss It School of Filmmaking.
Yeah. I have 50 foot of film and I'm gonna get use of every inch of it. So we'll have a meal on board before we clear customs and go ashore. But yeah, Don, this movie's actually been stabilized. It was even more interesting at first, and I took out some of the really bad stuff. But here, welcome to the port of Casablanca. Your tour buses await you. And again, I mentioned you bring cargo on board. You were going overseas, you'd bring your car with you, right? If you were really well off. Don't wave. Again, if anybody has been to Casablanca, they could identify this palace. Looks quite nice. It almost looks like Epcot.
Great presentation, Bill, but I'm afraid I have to run. See y'all later.
No problem, Don. There's only 2
Bye,
minutes
Don.
left to go, so we'll have a great weekend.
Oh, well, if there's only 2 minutes left, I can hold on a little longer. I might as well be a completist.
Oh, okay. I make fun from time to time, like the guy with the camera angle and stuff like that, but I'm still so glad that people took movies like this and, that they have survived, because it captures a piece of the world that I've never been to and I probably never get to, but also catches a time that's, changed in so many ways. So that's why, even though, sometimes you get a film that's not really that great, you're not expecting, Cecil B. DeMille or the greatest thing from, MGM in terms of quality, but it's, still, to me, I enjoy just the variety of scenery and the time eras that these old movies capture.
Bill, are these films that you're showing right now, is it 8mm?
Yeah, this was actually 8mm. Yeah, the 1965. So Super 8 had not come out yet at this
I was
point.
forgetting, it could have been 16mm, but yeah, I was forgetting it was the mid-60s, yeah.
Yeah, no, this is all. I don't have the. There's an adapter I have to get for the scanner to do 16mm, and I haven't convinced myself to get it yet because I don't have enough 16 to make it worthwhile. But for 8mm, I think, again, considering this is 1965, a long time ago, I think it's held up pretty well.
Do you know if it was Kodachrome or Ektachrome?
It was Kodachrome. Yeah, I looked at the leader. The leader on it was Kodachrome, and also you can see the film codes on the edge of it. So that is it. Let me stop there. Oh, Beth, one of those big video cameras, the early 80s, 90s. Yeah, my the dog's eye view. I had one of those big video cameras, and Carol and I went down and met my parents at Epcot, and my dad, until his dying days, talked about his son and that camera, because it was, I had to wear a backpack, actually on a shoulder strap, the VCR, with about a 1-inch cable that ran from the camera over to the thing. And it was heavier than hell, but again, it was all that existed at that point in time. So the 1980s, having a portable Betamax and everything was just was unheard of. So I got all sorts of great movies. But I've mentioned my aunt. My aunt Floss was just great. She was the world traveler in the family, and she would go all around the world, and she would borrow our family's movie camera. And we'd come back and we'd watch Aunt Floss's thumb in front of the Roman Colosseum, Aunt Floss's thumb in front of the Space Needle. Or I mean, she was a lovely lady. I really loved her dearly, but we could not get her to understand where the viewfinder was, because a lot of these things, again, the viewfinder and the lenses, were not always in sync. There was not a true optical viewfinder. So she would be taking the movie and she just, be holding it when she get back, and it'd be. It's sort of like watching this for the whole movie.
My grandmother used to take movies for years and years, and she loaned me her camera once in a while. And first lesson I got from her was about parallax. The viewfinder does not see what the lens sees.
Yeah, Eric's saying when he first got his video recorder, his terrible cinematographer captured everything. not that I'm much better with my phone. Yeah, some of my friends that are in the business go absolutely crazy. If you ever want to get some of my friends upset, you want to go out and take a movie of something. Say, I take pictures of car crashes or things I go to, but right. If you hold your phone like this and take the video like that, my friends will kill you because they're going to say, take it like that. And you see it all the time on the news where they buy footage from people of a house fire or something, and they have to go and put other stuff on both sides of it because the person, it's like that. So just remember that, Eric, taking a movie, hold it that way.
Actually, contrarily to what I just wrote, I am one of the few people that do horizontal videos because of my age. But I'm just a lot more herky jerky. But now that I work with a lot of videographers and such, they always say, just do the 6-second rule, just pause for 6 seconds, and that'll, that for me clicked. And so I try to do that whenever I start filming stuff. But I just like your brain just interprets so much quicker than like when you look back at it, I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing? It's nausea inducing. It's terrible.
And you got to remember back when the movies that Bill was showing were taken, that film and the processing was expensive.
Oh yeah,
very true.
And then it was also you only got 1.5 minutes, and then you had to flip the film over. So again, people were trying to get everything. But you mentioned nausea. I think I mentioned before, our son wanted to be the videographer on this one trip. So I gave him the camera, and it literally was nausea inducing. We were in Wales, and we put it up, and we have I think it's a 73-inch TV. So this is going to look great. Remember, Carol? I had to turn it off and start looking down at the floor. It was really terrible.
Yep.
Oh, thank God for stabilization now. Oh my God. I don't even know how things would be without it.
Well, he was just, it wasn't that he was just shaking. He was like, look at that. Oh, there, a butterfly. Look. So if you remember The Man from U.N.C.L.E., they would always do whip pans, and they would change the scene.
Yeah.
They'd be in New York, and also like, across the screen, they'd be in Morocco. Well, he was doing whip pans. But hey, still, he enjoyed it. He got a great kick. We were on the train. I enjoy trains. And we have a lot of good videos of things like that. I've got a shopping bag here of videos I've got to get digitized. Get on the list.
Wow.
So again, I appreciate folks joining. There were next week I have, if you've been to Marineland, I have a really nice view of visit Marineland around 1960. The LA Zoo, a number of other odds and ends working through the pile of stuff here. Maybe I'll if I can find it, maybe I'll show you Neil's video.
I'll have to take Dramamine before we watch that, right?
Hey, Bill.
Yeah, Randy.
Do you know in the Los Angeles film, what were there were 4 fountains on a rather large lagoon. They were at nighttime and they were illuminated like red and orange. It was at the beginning of the film, and that was later on in the film.
Yeah.
You know what they were?
No, I don't. Let me go back to that, see if anybody can recognize it. 1 second here. So that's under Southern California. Travel on. And let me share the screen again. Yeah, I don't know where they would be. I also, let me just play it here for a second. I was trying to figure out when I saw it, if this was, again, trick photography. Is that the same fountain 3 times? Like
I think you're right.
Yeah.
No, but look at the reflections. The reflections are completely different in each of those.
That's true.
And distance. And that's a very large body of water. I mean, those aren't, unless it's some little trick with the camera to make it look bigger. I'm trying to replace, they kind of look familiar, but I can't place them. There was some big building that had a huge water fountain, sort of like the LA DWP building did. And but this view wouldn't be that, because you don't have this looks like it's looking out over the valley, possibly. Bill, it's not downtown.
I was wondering if it's 3 different exposures, and that's why they came out different, just like they did the bit with all the car headlights going around. That was some trick photography, but it is an interesting one. if anybody does recognize, I was trying to figure out if it was the fountain in the, Los Feliz at the entrance to Griffith Park or not.
That one I think was in later on. There was a segment where it showed several different fountains. I'm pretty sure one of those was the Los Feliz fountain.
Yeah, here's the DWP fountain, the reflecting pool that people mentioned.
Yeah, the fountains are turned off. You can see the little spots in the ground, in the water there where they would actually come out of the nozzles.
Did any of you ever see the Triforium in motion or light? I mean, again, huge thing that the city every now and then puts all sorts of money into trying to do it. But the lights are supposed to be like a giant color organ and go with the music. And, I saw it one time and it just did not work at all. I mean, it was not in sync. It was just, you what?
I went to a concert.
You went to a concert. My son went to a concert at the Triforium. Was it playing?
Yeah, it worked.
It worked that night. Oh, okay. So Neil has been to the Triforium and seen it. I was just trying to find the I don't know where the motion, the highway at night stuff was. Oh yeah. There's Ed.
Maybe not.
Yeah, it doesn't quite look like him.
It is. I think it is.
Maybe it
Again,
is.
this is the same thing where I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, copies of the same image all in the thing. So if they did the same thing with the fountain or not, I don't know.
Yeah, this one, I think they may have had it's like a prism filter you screw onto the lens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a picture. I don't know where it is. It's on a slide. I was on a layover in Frankfurt. We used to stay in Mainz. And there's a church there with a Marc Chagall stained glass window. It's all in shades of blue. And I used that prism filter to photograph it. It's really a spectacular picture. I'm not sure where it is now. But,
Is that the lens they used in the movie The Fly?
oh, could be, yeah.
Well, I hope folks saw some.
Hey, Bill, you have a couple of minutes? I had written down some questions. I'm sorry if I'm.
Oh, no,
keeping
sure,
you.
go ahead.
Yeah, when you did the Century of Progress presentation a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I was going to send you what I thought were Frank Lloyd Wright designs that had been considered for the fair. Actually, when I got into the book, they were Norman Bell Geddes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, they're still pretty interesting, but yeah, they were not Frank Lloyd Wright. I don't know what I got. Then I was also going to send you, and I don't think I did, the link to the Normandy Facebook page.
I did sign up there. Thank you.
You did, okay, good. And then, yeah, you mentioned your parents were travel agents?
Yes.
So they must have gotten a lot of free or greatly reduced, what we used to call FAM travel, familiarization travel.
Yeah, they did. It was interesting because they got into it accidentally in a way. They just love to take trips. And so there were 5 boys in my family, and my parents were basically saints, sort of taking care of us. But once a year, my grandparents would take us and let my parents go someplace and decompress. So they started going on a lot of cruises and that sort of thing with their friends just to do it. Well, my dad had a job. He worked for a international steamship company, and they would send him all around the world to where there were shipping issues. So they sent him to Hong Kong, they sent him down to Haiti, they sent him all over the place. And people started asking my dad, do you happen to know, I'm going to Haiti, do you happen to know a good hotel there? And he would tell them. And he realized over time that he might be able to do something with it. So he went to a local travel agency. Funny thing is, remember Terrace Travel in Oceanside, New York. And he worked at a deal where if I bring people into your travel agency, I want a cut of the commission. So the travel agency was just fine because all these people were basically going on to 5-star hotels or flying first-class airlines because they were going on business in that. So my father had one friend named Joe, 4 friends named Bill, and they formed a little company called Joe Bill Travel. And they would get all these comp trips. So they would do things like fly out from New York to San Francisco and take a tour of San Francisco for the weekend. And it cost them like $12 in taxes, sort of thing. So Carol and I flew up to San Francisco, met them, joined the whole tour group and everything. And then I realized I've got the same name as my father. Wow, this has the potential in it. So when they opened up the Queen Mary and they built a whole new tourism experience, they built an English village at the base of it. And I went out there, showed my official Joe Bill travel agency thing, William Cotter, sure, come on in, it's all free, it worked great. But yeah, my parents, they got a lot of trips and they really enjoyed it. They had a great time. And as a kid, at first you'd kind of resent the fact that they were going off on this cruise, and then you realize my grandparents are going to spoil me rotten for a week, so it worked out great for all of us.
When I first started flying in '77, there was a deal. It was $500 round trip. You went over to London on the QE2 and then came back on the Concorde or vice versa. Of course, I couldn't afford $500. I was making like $580 a month base salary, so I never did it. Boy, I wish I had.
Yeah, we had another trip where my parents were going over to I guess it was Holland for 2 weeks. They were doing a whole bunch of stuff in Europe for 2 weeks, but I knew they were going to be in Holland. And I happened to be working in Munich. So I said, oh, that's Munich's close enough. So I just hopped over to, meet him in Holland and the other folks, because again, they all went with the same group all the time. I came walking to the hotel and said, hey, what are you guys doing here? My parents knew I was coming, but they had not said anything to their friends. But, they got a real kick out of, the fact that their son would show up as they were going around the world on their trips. I would try to schedule my business trips and, it just was kind of a neat coincidence that I'd be in some place or, only a few hundred miles away. I might as well hop over and go see the folks and meet them in Paris or, that sort of stuff. So they really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I had an aunt and uncle who, I don't remember exactly how they got into it. They were taking dancing lessons someplace and then they started teaching them. And then they heard about this where they got associated with a cruise line that would go to Hawaii. This is out of like San Francisco, that area, from San Francisco to Hawaii to Tahiti to different places, in the South Pacific. And they would they'd put on a dance show once each night. And they would teach 2 classes during the day, 1-hour dance classes during the day. And the rest of the time was theirs. And they were paid on top of having free cruise and, the food and everything else. And when they got to places, they just stayed on the ship. I mean, they could go ashore, but I mean, they lived on the ship. And it was a really great, they'd go out 2 or 3 times a year on these cruises doing this stuff. And they cruised all over the South Pacific for just next to nothing.
Yeah, we got a free Disney cruise that way. And Carol had come to me and said, for your 60th birthday, do you want a big party or would you like to go on a cruise? And
50th birthday.
50th, right? Okay, well, real long time ago. So I said, yeah, we'll do a cruise. And we decided to do the Disney cruise because the kids could enjoy it. And that week, on Tuesday of that week, we get a phone call from Disney. Hey, we saw your name on the passenger list. Would you like to give a talk about Disney television on board the ship? So I said, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds fine. And, started putting it together as I'm trying to pack. And then they called the day before we're leaving and said, would you mind giving 2 talks aboard the ship? And I said, no, I don't mind doing it, but it is sort of a vacation. I mean, I don't want to sound greedy, but do I get anything out of this? Because I think maybe we'll get to meet the captain or they let me honk the horn or something, right? And they said, oh, we didn't tell you we're sending you for free. So I said, well, that was a good deal. What made it really special was, and Carol, I'm always playing pranks on Carol. You guys have seen the video like of the Pantages Theater and, the El Capitan, stuff like that. We fly to Florida, we get off the airplane, we're coming down the escalator into the airport, the baggage claim. And I'm looking for baggage claim 4. There's 3, there's 2, there's mom, there's dad. Wait, what the hell is that? She had arranged for my parents to go on the cruise with us. And I had no idea they were going to be there. I mean, my brain was stripping gears. I'm trying to figure out why the hell are they standing there in the airport. So we went on the ship and it was really nice because they would make an announcement like today at 2 o'clock, Bill Cotter will be giving a talk in the so and such theater. And my dad's buttons were popping with pride. He's going around the ship. That's my son. He's the one doing it. No, it was really one of the best weeks I've ever spent in my life. I mean, and I, Carol set it all up. It was great for her to arrange it, but it was, and I thought after that, I'd like to give other talks or anything, but you have to be prepared to go on a moment's notice that, basically I'm not an A-list type person. So if they have the Sherman Brothers and the Sherman Brothers cancel, can you go tonight? So sort of thing. So I'd be more than glad to go do it again if anybody knows anybody at the cruise lines.
There's a Frasier episode where Frasier goes on an Alaskan cruise as a speaker, and I mean, it turns out to be like, the voyage of the damned, basically. But it's a funny episode.
Yeah, we went on a cruise to Alaska a few years ago, and there was a woman on board. It was an excellent speaker, where she would dress up each day in a period costume and perform a character that would be related to the town you were going to be visiting next. So she'd be a dance hall girl or a miner's wife, or that sort of thing. And her husband talked about animals, I think. Carol, do you remember?
Well, he was not a naturalist, but he was the one that narrated when we pulled into the glacier.
Right.
He was the one that told us all about what we were seeing, and he gave some other talks about wildlife and such.
And they were excellent. They did this cruise the entire Alaska season. They just, like you said, Brock, they lived on the ship, and we went into, their so-called specialty restaurant, the one you got to pay extra for. And they're there because everything was just, I guess, free for them. And it was really, thought of, hey, this could be a fun way to spend the summer. And they really added a tremendous amount to the tour. I mean, it was really, she was excellent. So if anybody knows anybody at Disney Cruises here.
I don't. We've all probably read somewhere. I guess it's popular for some older couples now just to book passage on a round the world cruise, and it's actually cheaper than staying.
Right? It's cheaper than actually going and staying places.
Yeah,
and everything's taken care of.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were saying in some places it's cheaper than your rent. I mean, you could go on a cruise around the world and not keep an apartment back home. You can, it turns out to be, a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Carol won us a free cruise on Celebrity Cruise Lines in February. We're trying to convince ourselves to finally get out of the house. So we may do that.
How did Carol win a cruise?
I don't think I won. They just picked my name out of previous passenger lists or something and offered me a free cruise. So
Nice.
our daughter got, she and her fiance both were offered free cruises. This came from the casino section of Celebrity Cruises. And we we hardly gambled at all. I think we went through the casino and dropped a few coins in. So I don't know how I was chosen. And it's not the best itinerary. It's down to Mexico, which is not my favorite place, but
I'll admit, Carol, how we got it. When you were sound asleep, I was sneaking out to the casino. I still owe them $32,000.
that was in Las Vegas.
No, on the ship when we were.
I know, but that was in Las Vegas.
Yeah, in Vegas, we were there one time for a company function, and Carol was there, and I guess the kids were with us, right?
Yeah, but I wasn't feeling well, so
She
I
wasn't
didn't.
feeling well, so she stayed in the room with the kids, and I went out, and you had to talk about one of these nights where everything went right. I mean, it's just. So I had all my friends help me carry all the buckets of coins back to the room, and I was just basically playing the slots. But Carol woke up in the morning and there were like 12 of these things full of quarters all down the length of the dresser. So she's like, "What the hell were you doing last night?" But it was really funny because we all had to get a luggage cart to carry these 12 things down, get the money back. And I had to walk through the casino to go get the car to drive home. And I had 2 quarters burning a hole in my pocket. And I said, "Oh, well, I got 2 more quarters. What the hell? I'll put them in there." And I finally came back to the car, and Carol said, "What took you so long to get the car?" And I was like, well, started counting off the money I'd won going through the casino on the way back there. That was the one and only time, ever so lucky. But that was a very, very, very welcome trip to Las Vegas indeed.
When I first started flying, I think it still is the same. You're forbidden to drink or gamble in uniform, but you'd be sitting in the Las Vegas airport and there's all these slot machines sitting there. So you'd kind of like nonchalantly walk by a machine and drop a quarter in. and kind of keep walking, hope nobody saw you. Well, a gal did that once, and she won a $1,000 jackpot, so she had to claim it. But,
In here, Richard Herring's saying that he thinks you got caught pretty hard by the house. Carol, keep your eye on Bill. You know, Carol, I gotta tell you, I love Carol dearly, but every now and then she says, you know, we haven't been to Vegas for a while. And she knows what's gonna come next. We'll book a thing, we'll get to Vegas, we'll drive across the desert, you know, get out there at light or you know, wherever Needles 197 degrees. We get to Vegas, oh, we're finally in Vegas. We get to the slot machine, Carol puts a quarter in, pulls it down, she loses, she goes, I don't like it here, let's go home. She's not a gambler, and that's one
No,
of the
I'm
reasons
not.
I
I don't
love her.
like losing money.
Well,
do you go to the buffets?
we love buffets. I don't know if they still have them, but they've gotten really expensive from what I understand now.
Yeah, that was always my favorite thing. I would bid, we would have a lot of trips. The first night layover would be like in DC or Boston or New York. Then you end up in Vegas for the next night's layover. That was my intention, was to go to a different buffet each trip. And I mean, I love them. I hear they're coming back to self-serve. A couple of ladies I worked with who were still working at Delta.
They
went over
have to
for
be
their
really
birthday.
careful now, I guess. You can't help yourself to anything.
I think they're
And that's on
going back to
ships
that.
too.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
Vegas buffets are going back to self-serve.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe so by
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But I think that was part of the problem because they probably didn't have enough people to serve and all that kind of thing.
I understand they want, you know, $70, $80 now for some of these buffets. You know, before you go, it'd be $12 and you could eat yourself into a Roman coma, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when they used
You
to
don't
have
realize
those.
that most of those people are not paying for the buffets. They're all
Right,
cops.
right.
So probably 90% of the people are not paying those rates.
Well, we were in Niagara Falls a couple of years ago, and there
Oh,
was a
yeah.
casino there, and they had a thing, if you sign up for a club, you can get a free buffet. So it's like, okay, fine with me. So we went and signed up. They still sending me emails, you know, next time you're in Niagara Falls, come back to our casino, and I don't know when that's gonna be, but you know, I mean, it was no sales pitch or anything. You just walked in, signed up for the club, and here's a ticket for the $40 buffet. Fine with
That's
me.
right.
We
So
enjoy it.
all the cops are looking for the Westinghouse or the GE luncheons.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that why you're volunteering now, because you feel so guilty?
No, it's condition of my parole.
Let's see your leg. Is there an ankle bracelet on it?
Not anymore.
He cut it off.
That's why Carol has those pinking shears.
Yeah, you know, it's funny though, we'll get sometimes, you know, you're working on an accident or a crime scene or whatever, and some of them come up, well, just yesterday, we went out, of all things, stopped at an Arby's because they had given out free chocolate shakes, and the guy at the counter I was still wearing my uniform. The guy was, oh, what does a police volunteer do? But I've had people ask me like, what, it's 110 degrees, why are you standing out here? I said, oh, I only have 6 more months to go on my parole. And they go, oh, I didn't know they make parolees do that. Right over their head.
Are you an active policeman now?
No, I am inactive. No, I've been a volunteer with the LAPD about 30 years now. And when I retired, I had started basically doing computer stuff for them. And I put in the first, I got Warner Brothers to donate the first computers to go into the LAPD stations. So I started actively programming them and that sort of stuff. And then a number of years ago, they decided that we could start putting people out in the field to go on the bike patrol, because if there's 2 officers out on a bike, it's okay. But if there's 8, it looks more impressive. So 2 guys with guns, 6 guys without guns. So we were doing that. But I really liked it. I mean, I told Carol I was going to do it. She goes, you haven't gone on a bike in 30 years, but I did it and I survived and I ended up running the unit. But then going back about 6, 8 years now, we had a big gas blowout in Porter Ranch, the town next to us. And everybody had to move out because of the unhealthy air. And people were going into the neighborhood, stealing everything in sight because it was deserted. So they asked me if I would take the bike patrol up there to patrol the neighborhood. And I said, no, I won't. First of all, it's hillier than hell in Porter Ranch. But also, if it's so unhealthy air that people can't sit on the couch and watch TV, I'm going to be up going on the hills. So I said, so give us a car and I'll go patrol it. And they said, okay. So they gave us 2 clapped out, used up patrol cars. And we went around, and all of a sudden the crime rate, and this is no joke, within our 2 weeks of starting to do it, the crime rate dropped by 40% in that area. Because we would come down the street with the lights just blinking on the car, and you would literally see people run out from the front door of a house, jump in a car and race off. And I'm not allowed to chase you with red lights and sirens, but I can call the helicopter and the patrol cars that can come and get you, and it just knocked it down. So we became the pilot for the city of LA to do it. And we also expanded. Now we go off with radar guns. And again, I can't give you a ticket. I'm not a sworn officer, but you will get a letter saying your red Ford was going 65 and a 40. If you're going too high, an officer comes out to your house and has a talk with you. But then we use it to justify the overtime for the motorcycle officers that I go out on a Monday or Tuesday, tell them what streets are really bad. They're out there on Thursday and Friday giving the real tickets. So I go out and do it 2-3 days a week. And then, as Carol knows, they're always calling for stuff in the middle of the night. You know, somebody's killing themselves in an accident where there's a fire burning or something. But most departments have some sort of volunteer program, and always encouraging people to call your local department and, you know, see about volunteering. It's quite gratifying.
Yeah, I think Bill, you and I talked several years ago, because I was going to do Long Beach reserves. And unfortunately, I'd gotten an academy slot and everything, gone through the whole process. For reserves, basically the same thing is going on as a, you know, full-time sworn officer. Had to have my hips replaced, so I couldn't do any of the, you know, the park course and all that stuff. You know, I did it when I was applying, but I just couldn't do any of that stuff that would be done in the actual training course. But I look back to it, the only thing Long Beach has now, they did away with reserves. They don't have an actual volunteer program like you do, but they have a senior program that, you know, they're older people and they go out and assist with seniors who, you know, have experienced something. That's all they have now.
Yeah, CHP has a senior program too. We're always trying to get more people into our program. We do have a few younger ones now. But the CHP has one, you have to be a senior and you have to be retired, you know, for whatever the reasons they have. But yeah, I went to the academy in '94. They had a program back at that time called Technical Reserve, and they did away with it. But I'm on the books as a police specialist for reserve. So technically I am a reserve officer, but I do not have the power to give you a ticket. So again, I find it really gratifying, because stupid little things like last week, and if you follow me on Facebook, I mentioned last week we had the worst intersection in the city of LA, or at least in our area, is the entrance to the Sunshine Canyon landfill, because all the trash trucks come there and they stink to high heaven. And we had last week a call went out for a car broke down at the entrance to the Sunshine Canyon landfill, blocking the road, and it's a really bad spot because you come up over a hill and around a curve, and there's this guy broken down. When we went out there, we had to be out there for an hour. So we had the smell of the dump on one side, all the dust and dirt they're kicking up. And right behind us is a place where they store trucks that pump out cesspool. So it was really bad. So we went out there to block it, and the black and white came out and it said, you guys got it? I said, yeah, we'll take it, no problem. Well, 15 minutes later, they were handling a call for a transient with a piece of rebar who was chasing somebody down the street trying to bash their head in. And we've had a number of cases where we've been able to do that. You know, oh, I'll take this one, I'll relieve it. And the officers came back and said, hey, we just stopped the guy from beating his wife to death. If we were still here doing this, we wouldn't have been able to go to that. And it's been nice. I, you know, pat myself in the back. I've caught several drug dealers and several grand theft auto suspects that have gone to prison, and it's again really gratifying. It's and again, if you guys ever want to go to the police academy for lunch, it's a great coffee shop. Just let me know if you're in the area.
Isn't it kind of risky doing that work?
You know, we try to be smart on that, Irv. And one of the things we really try to watch our people is for one of these. We don't want to have anybody that goes to anything that's particularly bad. on the radio call, you hear what the call is, and if it's a 211 armed robbery, go, I'm probably not going to go to that. And then, but armed can be a gun, it could be a knife, it could be anything. So we will listen to the calls. For example, I don't go to domestic violence calls unless they're asking for people to set up a roadblock. Well, we had one, for example, the guy was in the house threatening to shoot his wife, was across the street from a school. So we had to evacuate the school, block off the neighborhood with a SWAT team, talk him and his, his wife escaped out of the house. And then they had to talk him out of it. The only time and again, I've been doing this a bunch of years, the only time I ever had one that was a little iffy was there was a report of a guy driving on the wrong side of the road, into oncoming traffic, doing all sorts of bad stuff. And we said, well, the guy's coming in our direction. I hope he doesn't get to as far as we are because he's going to hit something. Well, a call came out that he did hit something, and we drove over there. And I got out, and this guy was big. If he didn't play pro football, he should have. It was a big, tall, black guy, ranting and raving, screaming at the top of his lungs, and this civilian was there and was like, well, now that you're here, let's take him down. I thought, are you crazy? I mean, this guy's huge, right? So I knew right away it was above my pay scale. So I got on the radio, I said, officer needs backup at so and such. Well, I had 6 patrol cars and a helicopter there within about 6 minutes. The guy was so big, it took 3 officers to hold him against the wall to put him in handcuffs. While he's fighting with them, the civilian comes back out of the house with a taser in his hand, and he starts running over there. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going to help the officers. No, man, you can't do that. If they see you running over there with that in your hand, they can get your gun. They're going to shoot you. No, I'm going to, I said, look, if you guys get any closer, I'm going to have to stop you, and I don't want to have to stop you. Later, when the sergeant came, they had to do a whole use of force thing. The guy with the black guy had been having a mental breakdown. He was just really out of it. Thank God nobody got really badly hurt, took him to the hospital, but they had to do a whole giant use of force investigation because of, the fighting with the guy and everything. The civilian came back out and said, I need to talk to you about, this guy, me. And I went, oh God, he's going to bitch about me because I, told him I was going to knock him down. And he said to the sergeant, I don't know how you train your people, but he kept me from doing something really stupid, and I would have gotten hurt if it wasn't for him. And I ended up getting a departmental commendation. 3 weeks ago, accident, the exact same spot. We get there, the guy comes out of the house, he goes, hey, remember me? I said, yeah, you don't have your taser, do you? He goes, no, I don't today. But no, we try to be smart. We try not to go to anything really stupid. And our major rule of thumb is if it ever gets dangerous, get in the car and leave. Just drive away.
Are they paying you to do this, or you're a volunteer?
No, it's all for free.
For free, you risk your life.
No, don't say that. It's going to scare Carol. No,
You hear about so much violence in all the cities now. I wouldn't go out there for all the money in the world.
We have parts of the city where the volunteers just work at the desk or work with the detectives. I wouldn't go in the field in some of them. Where we live, the San Fernando Valley up here, it's a pretty good area. And I tell you, the cops are stretched so thin that they just can't respond to a lot of things we respond to. We had one, it happened right in front of us. We were driving down the street, and this guy was about 80-year-old Korean man, came out of a driveway, somebody hit him and just destroyed his Jaguar right there on the spot. And the guy was standing there crying, didn't know what to do. And I said, hang on, we'll take care of you. And you have this problem with what they call gypsy cabs. So they'll hear because I called in the radio and we got a TC at this intersection. All of a sudden the tow trucks show up. I'll take your car, we'll get it towed away. And this other Asian gal showed up. Oh, I'm Asian, you're Asian, I'll make sure nothing happens to you. And her boyfriend sitting around the car, Armenian guy, I just said, no, I mean, you're not going to take this guy's car. We're going to have a police tow truck take it, and then they amazingly brought their own ambulance to the site, their own private ambulance. They're telling the guy, we need to have you come with us. And I said, if you need an ambulance, I'll get the fire department to come for you. I don't think you need an ambulance, but you don't want to go with these people. There are so many people that go and scam these people left and right. And I keep thinking, if it was my parents and they were standing in the intersection crying, I'd want somebody to come out and help them. And, to me, and again, we've had some super gratifying things. We found, people that wandered away from home with Alzheimer's. We were standing on the side of the street doing radar. And a guy walked up and the only thing he could say to me was a name of a town in Spanish. And I don't speak Spanish. So it's like he was wearing a heavy coat and standing on the side of the road. So we got a Spanish speaking officer, called his house. We went through his wallet, found his driver's license, called the house. And so my dad's upstairs sound asleep. I don't know who you've got. And he said, no, your dad's standing here with us. All right, I'll go and look. Oh my God, where's my dad? You know, again, we got the guy back to his house, so we try not to do anything dumb and stupid. But it's addictive. I mean, every time you go out and you help somebody and they're thanking you and everything, you feel really good about it. And, I keep talking, my dad was a volunteer fireman. I think I quoted it in my genes from him. So, again, Tom was an MP for 2 years, bar fights. No, we don't do stuff like that. We will protect the perimeter as the other people go in and they can break up the fights. So, and again, we have had to let volunteers go because they have gotten into dangerous situations. And our number one rule is you cannot endanger yourself because they'll pull the plug on the program. And we have periodic timeouts for some people that, hey, your intention is really good, you shouldn't have done that, let's do some more training. But it's interesting. I mean,
Well, if you're not here 1 week, we'll know what happened to you.
what's that?
If you're not here 1 week, we'll know what happened to you.
No. If I'm not here this week, it's because I got something else that interested me more and I got tied up. So
You're not going to see me next week. I'm going to be out on the beach.
how do we know that? How do we know you're not in a bar fight?
No, I'm going out to Myrtle Beach for a week.
Oh, it's a great area. So
We're going out there too, or we might run into you. We'll be at Myrtle Beach starting Wednesday.
I'm going the day after Labor Day, Tuesday to Tuesday, North Myrtle Beach.
Yep, us too.
I go
North
for
Myrtle.
all you can eat crab buffets.
We like to go after Labor Day because once all the kids are back in school, the beach gets a whole lot quieter.
You're going to be down there at the same time? Same
Yeah,
week?
we'll be there Wednesday till Sunday, North Myrtle.
I'm staying at the Avista.
Okay.
well, it'd be a
Okay,
real
I'll run
shame if we ran into each other.
Well, I'm going to try to meet up with Ken tomorrow. He's in Atlanta for Dragon Con. He's speaking his couple of spacements. So we're going to try to go down and meet up with him tomorrow.
Oh, say hi for me.
Will do.
Well, I hope folks enjoyed some of the trip back in time with these things. And if you're in LA, you probably recognize a bunch of the places like Olvera Street, things like that. And if you're not in LA, it hopefully gave you some spots to go to. Most of the places other than Corriganville are still there. So in Corriganville, if you're in the area, is a really neat hike. It's all free. There's no charge for parking. And there's some caves up there the Indians used to be in, and some really nice forest areas, oak trees and that sort of stuff to walk through. And the railroad runs right by it. It's a fun spot. Any of you guys go to Corriganville? No. Well, it's a really neat spot. Like I said, you stand there and see where they found, some of the Robin Hood movies and Tarzan movies and some of the others. And they've got some nice signage around the area explaining the thing, and you can go and pose near the rocks, that sort of stuff.
I think this is the first time I've heard of that, Corriganville. When you posted what the topics were going to be, I thought you were talking about Spawn Ranch where the Manson family lived.
It's right near there. Hang on, let me just go grab something real quick.
Okay.
Funny, you're going to be in Myrtle Beach the same time I am. I go Tuesday to Tuesday. You're right. After Labor Day, the prices drop dramatically and the water's still warm. The restaurants aren't that crowded.
Right. The pools are still open and the beach is still really enjoyable, but it's not nearly as
The
bad.
ocean temperature is like 88 degrees. It's like a bathtub.
Hopefully this shows up here. Okay, come on. It's a book on Corriganville, and it's a big book. You can see how thick it is. It's really a fascinating book. I mean, it's got lots of pictures of the days of filming and newspaper articles, and it goes on and on and on. It's how many pages is this thing? He didn't number the pages. Oh, 400 plus pages. I mean, it's a great slice of history. And like I said, we took the Cub Scouts out there and wander around, and it's picnic tables out there. But you park the car and you walk 30 seconds, and you don't see any houses or anything. It's just a really great spot to go out to. So if you come up this way sometime, we'll go over to Corriganville. Just not this time of year, hotter than
It's like,
hell.
how about today? Yeah.
Oh, God, no. No. I'm glad the mail lady brought the mail to the door, because I don't know if I want to walk to the mailbox today.
Well, it's 104 in Valencia right now.
Yeah. Did you see the forecast for next week, though?
Haven't looked that far. Is it going to get bad again?
Next Saturday and Sunday, it drops to 88 degrees with a 50%
Yeah.
chance of rain.
Yeah, right.
I gotta tell my friends that I'm supposed to turn off power in their neighborhood in Long Beach, I think for most of next weekend. I don't know how they can get away with doing that, but
Yeah, I've got a bridge for sale too.
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I kept telling them, I've got so many notices, oh, your power's gonna be off from whatever, 9 to 4 on Friday, and it never happened, so.
Was on the news last night. They're expecting to have rolling blackouts in Glendale this weekend. So they were saying, we're going to do our best, but if you could leave your lights off. What I really enjoy is the irony of our state, where they announce on Tuesday that they're not going to have any gas-powered cars for sale after 2035. And then 2 days later, asking people, please don't charge your electric cars. The grid can't handle it.
Yeah.
I mean, the patrol cars we drive are electric cars. I love them. They're speedy. I mean, they're super little cars and everything. But the thought of, all the electric cars is great as long as the power grid can handle it. We can't even handle running the lights and air conditioners now, because those cars take a hell lot of power. They don't, if you just plug it in on a 110-volt charger, it takes about 20 hours to recharge it. You have to have a 220, or we have I think it's a 440-volt charger. It charges it in like 20 minutes. But everybody's going to drive around, come home, plug it in, and the lights are going to go out. Not going to be good.
Well,
We're
we'll
about
all
to-
be in solar by then, so it won't
Yeah,
cost anything.
That,
That's what
Why
they
don't
that's
they
say.
what I'm
put-
saying.
why don't they put
Yeah.
solar cells on the roof of the electric cars? Wouldn't that
Yeah.
make sense? They're outside in the sun, put
do.
the panels on the roof.
I
There
think
are
they
some-
tried that in some places.
I've seen them at the car show in LA, which, Bill, do you go to the car show in November?
Not for many years now.
Yeah, but last year, they really concentrated on electric, primarily, or it may have been the year before, during the pandemic. Because most of the big, GM and all didn't even show up. So it gave an opportunity for a lot of the, newer independent electric car builders to show up and show their stuff.
Yeah, we have electric BMWs, and the first cars they gave us, I mentioned, they were really clapped out old patrol cars. We'd have to get to the decision: do I try to accelerate or not? I mean, they were terrible. With these things, just like a Tesla, each motor, each wheel has its own motor, and you can stomp on it. You can watch the meter go way down. It's not going to get the same range, but they'll push you back in your seat, and they'll really take off. Not that I've ever done that. Barry, you had your hand up?
Yeah, the rumor is today that after the second scrub of the Artemis launch, that the environmentalists are concerned with the liquid hydrogen and oxygen getting into the atmosphere and destroying things, and they want NASA to consider launching with batteries.
They scrubbed the launch again.
Yeah, they
Yeah, it got scrubbed at about 11 o'clock or so. And I'm here in Fort Lauderdale, 7 stories up, and normally on good days when there's no clouds in the skies, I get a great view of the north of rockets going off. But it's been cloudy out. It was cloudy out on Monday morning, and it was cloudy out today, so I wouldn't see anything at all. So I'm glad it got scrubbed, because I can't see it. And generally I have my camera out there, trying to do a time lapse of rockets going off. But yeah, just on the subject of, of batteries. Yeah, Bill, I saw that comment the other day that they'd made, that California had made, which was totally ridiculous. But
Brock,
just
I
thought I'd
don't
say it.
know if it is ridiculous. I mean, you could create a solenoid type launch, where the electromagnetic field there's no limit to how fast you could propel a device through a electromagnetic field. It might work. It might not be so dumb.
Yeah, but
The
that's
electromagnetic launch, unfortunately, nothing except a solid lead weight can withstand the acceleration.
Well,
Yeah.
but it's very controllable. I mean, you could just gradually increase it faster and faster and faster and faster as it went through the
But
solenoid.
it's not the same as a rocket accelerating for minutes at a time. Your electromagnetic launch only lasts as long as the gun barrel.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it might have to be a pretty long tube. It might have to be a pretty long tube.
Well, we'll wait a couple hundred years for plasma drives and things like that for fuel to accelerate our rockets and USS Enterprise.
Well, you know what's going to happen? They're going to fill this giant electromagnetic launching device and find out, A, it causes cancer, and B, it destroys electronics for a 200-mile radius.
There you go.
When,
Does
Yeah, well,
everybody
that-
here have solar panels? And any of you have electric cars? Or
No.
just
I've been looking at electric cars, but I kind of getting discouraged for a couple of reasons. One, you can't find them anywhere, but.
right, Randy, we have a Mach-E, Ford Mustang Mach-E.
Oh, yeah.
And just absolutely love it. And
Yeah, some neighbors of mine have one of this, got it, yeah.
oh yeah, test drive it if they'll let you, or go
Yeah.
to the dealership. But it's like once you ride in one of those, you just won't settle for anything else. And they outperformed all the Teslas in the Car and Driver magazine and Consumer Reports.
How's the cost of electricity compared to gasoline though?
Well, we have 14 panels on our house, and we just never worry about it. We have $3.03 in the summer and $9.09 in the winter, no matter what we do. So
No, I mean, if you charge at a car, if you plug it into an outlet, the cost of electric versus the tank of gas.
they just
what's
had
the
an
cost?
article in the paper this week about that, where some guy bought a Tesla and he was going to the Tesla supercharger stations and charging it, and found out that it was costing more to charge it per month than he had been paying for gas to the car before. That's because they charge you a certain rate on, and if you have it in your house and you can charge it over 6 hours, it's one thing. You go to the supercharger and charge it in 20 minutes, they charge you through the group for it.
Yeah, but who wants to wait 6 hours? You can go.
Well,
to a gas
the thing
station,
is, if you
fill the tank
get-
in 5 minutes.
If you get the solar, because we're going with Tesla
Right.
solar, actually next month, they're supposed to put them in. We're going to
Yay.
end up with 12 panels. And that would allow us, based on our past usage, to, if we got an electric car, to be able to charge an electric car and it would never cost us anything.
right,
Yeah.
that's
And you do your charging overnight, of course, is your best bet.
Yeah,
because
if you put the
your
panels
other-
in your house.
well, actually, we
Well, yeah, you
charge-
got to put the panels on, but
Who's paying for the panels?
No, Brock, we charge during the day. So we plug it in the morning and let it charge while the sun is
Well, yeah,
shining
you-
on our panels. And then it's no charge. If
well,
you
yeah,
plug it
no,
in
but
at
I'm
night,
saying,
you're buying back your own power. Yeah.
What do
well,
the
no, but
panels cost
we're
me?
also going with the power wall. So I'll
Oh,
have backup.
cool.
I have
Oh,
backup with that
nice.
too. So I could charge anytime, but I'm saying you could charge when you're not using much electricity in your house, but
Right.
we're ending up with 153% of our usage. So we have
Right.
53% more, which we either sell back. Well, we're not really selling it back because you just get credits. But anyway,
Who paid for the panels?
well, yeah, I'm paying for panels, although I'm getting breaks on that, and the government's paying a bunch of money back and all that stuff. And for me, it penciled out to go ahead and do it. And I did not finance through them. Their financial charges were too high. I went through the credit union and did a secured loan. And so I'm paying like, I don't know, 2.5%. it's gonna cost me $1,000 to borrow the money for 5 years, and it'll all be paid off.
What do you figure your payback range is on that?
Who are you
Um,
asking? Okay.
Yeah, it's just asking
far-
Rob, because we live, same state. Just wondering how many years
Yeah.
you have to,
Well, based on our electric bill and everything else, we're paying about 20% more per month for that 5 years than we would have for electricity on average for that 5 years. And that's not assuming that the rates go up. If the rates of electricity go up, then it gets even smaller. So we'll have a 20% more after 5 years, but in 5 years it's paid off. And so there, from that point on, I'm not paying anything. So that 20% will get wiped out within the first few months. So it's the payback is going to be for me about 6 or 7 years, maybe at the most.
I hope the car lasted that long. What if the car?
Well, this is not for the car. This is for the solar panels. I'm not buying an electric car right now, but on that point, and you were talking about the car show, Chrysler just announced that, and they're the big muscle car company. They're doing their whole fleet's changing over in 2024. They're coming out with all electric, and they're even making them so it'll feel like both and sound like the muscle cars, but it's all electric. And they're doing some pretty dynamic stuff with them.
Is that their whole fleet? I thought it was just the Challenger and the,
Well, they're gonna do their whole fleet electric at some point,
Okay.
but the Challenger, but there was something like 12 different models, so that's covering a pretty wide area.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
when you mentioned about sounding, that's one of the things I don't like about the newest electric cars. They have to make a tone, under federal law so that people that are deaf can hear them coming. So we have a number of the BMWs, and they gave us another one, and we've got that other one and said, what the hell is wrong with this thing? It's making this noise. Turns out it's programmed into the car. They actually have a speaker in the front and a speaker in the back that makes this whirr noise as you come down the street. And it's annoying as hell. Does yours, Tom, do that, Tom?
I don't find it annoying. I don't know.
Can't
Well,
just turn off the
if-
speaker? Just turn
you-
off the
you could-
speaker.
Yeah, you
Well,
can turn it off. You
supposedly-
don't have to have it.
No,
Yeah.
you can't turn it off. And see, we drive fairly
In
slowly.
California?
We're driving around neighborhoods 20 miles an hour because we're looking over walls, what are people doing? It's very noticeable, so I always take, I give that car to the people I don't like, because I assign all the cars. But it's really quite noticeable that, people turn around and look, and otherwise we can, we like it. If you're breaking into something, I can drive right up behind you and go, hey, guy, with the new one, it makes a really nasty noise.
Well, the Chrysler
Yeah.
stuff,
We
they
don't have
said
that.
they've come up with something. They're not using speakers. They've got something about the way they move through the air that creates a sound. I didn't go into detail on the article, but there's something they're doing they're trying to mimic the whole muscle car thing. So, you get, when you start it up, you get that rumble sound, but it's not being done by speakers. It's actually creating the same feeling in the car, which I would assume would radiate out as far as a deaf person feeling the sound waves hitting them, even though they don't hear the sound waves. Because I think that's what you're talking about with the BMW, that they're creating a sound that they can feel that sound. They don't hear it, but the rest of us do hear it. And it's an awful sound.
Wouldn't it be nice if your house was on a busy road and all of a sudden you didn't hear the noise of the traffic anymore? That would be a pleasure.
My son-in-law has a Tesla, and I looked under the hood and there was a playing card next to the spokes.
That's what I was just gonna
I had
suggest.
that on my old bicycle.
And you're dating yourself on that one.
Yeah.
So we're
Closer to
gonna-
a baseball card.
We're gonna sign up for solar all over our house, probably next week.
Awesome. Awesome.
And they kicked up the tax incentive to 30%.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
gonna
And
hold
they'll
that way.
include roofing work. If you need any roofing work done, you can roll that in with the solar panels.
Well, what the company we're gonna go with, I think, is Sun Power.
That's the best one. That's
And
what I write about in my book, Bill.
what they do is wherever the panels are going, it's an option. It costs a little more, but they take the tiles out. They cut the paper out. They put a whole new roof down there. Then they put everything back together, and then they surround it with the tiles, so you can't tell. But the good news is if you need to redo your roof later, you don't have to pull the solar panels off. They're already underneath this 40-year roof.
Now, what if you have an asphalt shingle roof? And you gotta repair that?
Well, I mean, if you need roof work done, but see, our roof is about 22 years old and it's concrete tile. So the only thing they would do is replace the paper, the felt underneath it.
Right, right.
By the way, we added this into our contract. We asked them if our roof ever needs repair, that they had a fixed charge. They would charge us $300 to remove the panels, and then we could do the roof, and then they would put them back on for us.
And then you're drilling holes through your brand new roof to mount the panels.
Yeah, I mean,
They actually
there's
don't.
nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
They lift them and then have some kind of a way to go underneath the ones they've lifted and then attach it into the roof rafters.
Oh, they're not drilling holes through your roof.
So they're not drilling holes into the concrete. Yeah.
I keep thinking about it because we get so hot here and it seems like work. I just haven't convinced myself I want to stay in LA.
Here, this is something I would want to tell you all too, and that is you get the panels and they want to line you up with exactly what you use, right? Because you can't feed more electricity back into the grid than what you generate. You know, because if everybody did that, you know, got like twice as many panels, the system just couldn't handle it. So that's why you're forced to get the same number. And what we did is we got one extra panel.
Hello.
But then what we found ourselves doing is now
Hey, Eric, how are
we use
you?
way more electricity than we ever have before, right? We used to run the AC two nights a year. Now we run it every day throughout the spring, summer, fall, and we just never even think about it. We just the charge on the car is always full. Since then I've added a new electric lawnmower, and we've always had electric battery tools and stuff, but and we have a projector television system, right? A theater. So, it's running that too. And it's like, well, what do we have to do to ever get a bill, larger than our minimum of $3? And we can't seem to do it, so.
If it makes you feel any better, I'll send you mine.
I was gonna say, whoa, too, right?
Well,
What state
that's not
are
the
you living
objective.
in? Are you in California also?
We're in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay.
And then you were talking about temperature. We will have had 8 days in a row of over 102 in a year that has already seen more 100-degree temperatures than the history of recording temperatures. So it's been hot, and we don't really even think about it in the house because the AC is able to run it for us at no charge. I know, Irv, you'll say, well, yeah, we did for the solar panels originally, but they've already easily.
Well, again,
So-
if we were staying in LA.
I can't recommend them enough. I hope you all get them.
Today's 104 at the moment. I just looked, on its way to 106. So
Oh,
It's 105 right now. Here.
Yeah.
and then they're gonna hit you with a rolling
102.
blackout, turn off your AC.
Bill, you can have the heat right now. It's 94 here in southern Arizona, so we're getting a break.
Yeah, I'm near Charlotte, and it's 90 degrees with humidity of 60. So the heat index is about 95 here.
Yeah, my thermometer says 14% humidity here. I don't know if that's accurate, but I bet it's more in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty high down here. As a matter of fact, it's been sweltering for the last 2 weeks. But speaking of electric bills, fortunately for me, I think most of my electric bill is from the electronics and the fan that I run here in the home and the oven that I run every night. I happen to be, on the 7th floor of a 10-story building facing north, a concrete building. So fortunately for me, the only sun I get is the morning sun coming off the ocean. I'm roughly right off the ocean. But by the time it gets up to 10 o'clock, it's not blaring into the living room anymore. So the condo stays relatively cool most of the day because I'm in the middle of this concrete
Yeah, you're
thing.
insulated. Yeah.
And then at night, it kind of really cools down relatively well. So
Where are
I
you
don't run the
located?
air.
Where are you
Pardon
at?
me?
Where are you located at?
Fort Lauderdale off of Commercial and the
Okay, Fort
Intercoastal.
Lauderdale.
Yeah,
Well, we took
with a
advantage.
view to the north. You know, I can see the Space Coast.
You know, when we had the 94 earthquake, you know, I know the house before, you put your hand on the wall, it was always hot, you know, no matter how much the air conditioner was on. And the winter was always cold, and I, you know, kept saying to my next door neighbor who had lived here when they built the house, do they insulate these houses? Oh, yeah, they did. Well, earthquake came and it ripped the wall off the house, and it's just, so where's the insulation? Oh, I guess it was an option, and the original owner didn't get it. So we had the house, when we rebuilt it, very heavily insulated. We went to all double pane windows. And I also had the air conditioner split into two systems, one for upstairs and one for downstairs. You know, we figure we're downstairs most of the day, keep that cooler, we're upstairs at night. But the air conditioner does not run 24 hours a day. And I've got a third one here in my office because of all the computers. My next door neighbor didn't insulate the house at the earthquake time, had the same damage, didn't do it. Their air conditioner runs 24 hours a day. I haven't heard it turn off in the last 6 weeks. So I don't know, have any idea what their electric bills are, but ours are reasonable because again, you know, the house is so heavily insulated that, you know, I'll be out and go in the pool and I notice how quiet it is because the only sound of air conditioner is my next door neighbor. So proper insulation makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, our house is actually made of styrofoam block.
Oh, there you go.
Styrofoam block. Well, if you're
Yeah,
not in
yeah.
a hot area, you could be in a flash flood area. Those guys are even worse.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Well,
there's an interesting
See you next
article.
week, Bill. I gotta go.
I gotta run too, so we'll see you
All
all
right.
next week.
I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'm gonna be on the beach with Beth.
Yeah, say hi to Beth when you see her.
Yeah, I'll see you
Bye-bye.
down there. See you on the
Great,
beach.
take care. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.